Fix the machine. Battlefield Live.
Hat tip to my boy Chris Pilier out there who put together that original take on the Battlefield Live. And we used to do that show. Welcome to the Current Word here, Friday edition. Bob Carvajal usually in the big seat, and it's vacation time. So here I am, your humble holiday host, guest hosting for the Current Word here on WSHO Sunshine 800 AM. Trey Roberts, thank you for joining us, and hopefully you had a great Thanksgiving yesterday. If you didn't get a chance to catch the show, you can look up at Kingdom Useful pretty much anywhere, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and you can catch yesterday's show. Yesterday we interviewed Dr. Let me take that back. I didn't actually interview Dr. Marty McCary. What I did was I took portions of that interview from the Barry Weiss Honestly podcast, asked similar or if not identical questions to what Barry asked him so that you could hear and get the context for his answers. And it was all about basically where we are currently as a society, especially here in the United States, with COVID, the vaccines, masks for kids, the whole nine, pregnant women. And so if you didn't get a chance, I highly recommend going back and listening to that. We went a little bit long. We went about an hour and 15 minutes just to make sure we could get everything in. So hopefully you can take advantage of that at your leisure. Also, last night I took my oldest daughter to the Saints game, and it was horrible. So, great seats, wonderful time with her. I have a Saints jersey that actually says Psalm 82. So while we were in line, some Buffalo Bills fans pulled out their Bible app on their phone, and they made me quote Psalm 82 since I had it on my jersey, and so that was kind of fun. And then my daughter, some Buffalo Bills fans in front of us, dropped some money and some paper out of his pocket. She picked it up, gave it back to him, and he turned around and gave her a $20 bill for being honest. And so that was neat. Covered our snacks, so God is good. And then, of course, you had the horrible game for us here locally, and I'm rocking an LSU hat today, which I guess is just me being a homer, because LSU is not doing too well either in football this season. So, not that I or you really care that much about sports to begin with, but, it does seem like the mood of the city and people we go to church with tends to be a little bit better when at least LSU and the Saints are competitive, and they are not right now. So we got a great program for you, or at least what I think is a great program for you lined up. We're going to talk today a little bit about media corruption, and I'm not trying to convince anybody. I know everybody listening to this radio station believes that the corporate media, what some people call the mainstream media, what some people call the legacy media, for the most part, every single person that listens to WSHO on a regular, consistent basis believes that the media is pretty corrupt, that you really can't trust. But I want to share 4 stories today, and I've already posted in the comment sections on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, so that you can actually take these stories and sort of build a case for other people that you live life with online. The first story that we're going to talk about today comes from the Federalist, and this sort of lays the groundwork. Let's see here. This was this article that I'm going to share with you right now came off of the backs of the Rittenhouse case, and came off of the results that he was exonerated on all 5 charges. The title of this article from the Federalist is "Your Default Assumption Should Be That Everything Corporate Media Says Is a Lie." So, as far as the corporate media are concerned, the massacre in Waukesha, Wisconsin on Sunday was a Christmas parade crash. Okay, that's how the attack that killed 6 people and injured more than 60 others is being described by ABC, CBS, CNN, Newsweek, The Daily Beast, and others. Not an intentional attack, not a massacre allegedly committed by a violent career criminal already facing multiple felony charges, but merely a crash. The New York Times is calling it a tragedy. And not to be outdone by major news outlets, the Daily Beast rushed to remind its readers that, quote, there are no indications of any additional motive for the Waukesha killings or any reason to label it domestic terrorism. That didn't stop these right-wing trolls, close quote. Oh, no. We wouldn't want to assign ideological motives to a case too soon. But these darn right-wing trolls sure will. No mention from the Beast, of course, of the worst possible example of that in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, which every major news organization gladly went along with. But here's the thing. The next time you read an article in the New York Times or the Atlantic, watch a bit of breaking news on MSNBC or a panel on CNN or hear a report on NPR. Your default assumption should be that what you're reading or watching or hearing is not true. See, it's either an outright falsehood, a distortion of facts, or just not the whole story. That should be your posture toward literally every piece of news you consume from corporate media from now on. Now, listen, at this point, we have ample justification for such a posture. I mean, it's justified by every single major news story in recent years. The Russia collusion hoax, the debate over COVID vaccines, the January 6th riot, and especially, most recently, the Rittenhouse trial. And that's just to name a few. Every one of these stories, and many more besides, were dishonestly reported by a corporate media establishment that you should never trust again. Consider the Rittenhouse trial. How many times in recent weeks did you hear that Rittenhouse, quote, crossed state lines with a, quote, illegal firearm? Or that his mother drove him to Kenosha, Wisconsin that night? Or that Rittenhouse was a white supremacist and the men he shot were black? How many times did you hear that the Kenosha riot was over the police killing of an unarmed black man, Jacob Blake? You probably heard all of that. A lot. We all did. But none of it's true. The corporate press, they lied incessantly about nearly every little detail of the Rittenhouse case. And it was aided in that deception by big tech, which has also forfeited any presumption of trust by its users. Which is why I've been begging you for years now, or at least for years now. You're going to have to get off of social media. Or you're going to have to simplify social media so much so that you control social media and you use social media. Because if you don't, it is going to use you, and they already are using you because they let you use their product for free. If they're letting you use their service for free, you're the product. If you don't want Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google, Snapchat, TikTok, if you don't want these companies using you and using your data, then you have to get off of them. Okay? Facebook, in the immediate aftermath of the Kenosha riots last summer, Facebook proclaimed that Kyle Rittenhouse had committed mass murder, blocked all searches of his name, and censored all praise or support for him, including links to fundraising sites that were contributing to his defense, like bills. And eventually, Fundraising sites like PayPal and GoFundMe did the exact same thing. But Facebook wasn't alone. Before the Rittenhouse trial, Twitter censored and suspended users who dared to say that the teenager hadn't done anything wrong and acted in self-defense. After a jury acquitted Rittenhouse on all counts, confirming that indeed he did nothing wrong and acted in self-defense, Twitter continued to censor users and suspend accounts that declared Rittenhouse's innocence. Even though it was now a matter of judgment in a court of law, not opinion, and not speculation. Big Tech's official position, long before the trial, was that Rittenhouse was guilty. For Twitter at least, Rittenhouse remains guilty in some sense, despite his acquittal on all charges. If you want to post about the case on these platforms, there was only one opinion you were allowed to have. It was the same with the New York Post's Hunter Biden laptop story last year. Twitter banned the Post over it. And I'm talking about the New York Post. They suspended its account. And they demanded that the paper delete all tweets about the story, which turned out to be completely true. And the New York Post insisted it was, and as Hunter's former business partner, Tony Bobulinski, confirmed at the time. Regardless, most corporate outlets worked to suppress the story until the election was over, and only this past September did Politico admit that the story was true. Yet the New York Times continued to call it unsubstantiated before quietly deleting the false claim amid pushback. I mean, and it's the same with nearly every major issue in the news cycle. During the gubernatorial election in Virginia, where the influence of critical race theory on public school curricula became a flashpoint in the race, we heard over and over and over from corporate outlets and talking heads, actually, critical race theory isn't even taught in Virginia schools. Glenn Youngkin, they said, was simply lying. But of course, they were the ones lying, along with Democrat candidate Terry McAuliffe, whose lies cost him the election. Once you notice, and this is one of the things that I try to do, I try to just bring these things out to you so that you begin to see it. Because once you notice what's happening, it's impossible to unsee it. Just this past weekend, and by the way, this cuts both ways. We're gonna do today. We're gonna share a Blaze article. I mean, look, the Federalist, the Washington Examiner, the Blaze. Please understand, these are in fact right-wing biased sites, but they're open about their bias. So you're gonna have to find the balance, okay? Because if you can see the balance, if you can see the bias rather clearly in the right-wing media, surely you can see the bias in the left-wing media. But you're gonna still have to listen, read, and watch left-wing media so that you don't get into an echo chamber where all you're hearing is what you already believe. You need some record scratch moments, even if it literally makes you upset physically, like emotionally, anxiously, angrily, viscerally. At your core of who you are, you have to listen to the left-wing media to balance out the right-wing bias. And that's what we try to do here on The Current Word. It's what I know Bob does. I know it's what Kathleen does. It's what WSHO stands for. It's what I try to do on Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. at the Rock Worldwide show. So that's what we're trying to do here. Just this past weekend, a shocking report by the New York Times and how Hunter Biden helped a Chinese conglomerate secure a major cobalt mine in the Congo was this is a tough word, assiduously ignored by every major news network. The networks showed zero curiosity about President Biden's son facilitating the purchase from an American company, one of the world's richest cobalt mines, in 2016, which, by the way, when Joe Biden was still vice president. And instead, ABC News hyped online Black Friday deals, while CBS and NBC News focused on the LeBron James suspension. And on it goes. If the media are not lying outright, they are distorting or ignoring major stories that undermine their preferred narratives. And you won't have to wait long for this to happen again, because it's going to probably happen this week. And when it does, remember that this is what the corporate press has been doing for years now. They're not interested in informing their readers and viewers. They're interested only in telling you what to think. That is their entire raison d'etre. And rest assured that if you do somehow end up with the wrong opinion, big tech will silence you. Now, another example of this corporate media, like you're going to hear this because you don't. The Durham report, if you remember, Special Counsel John Durham was assigned toward the end of the Trump administration. He was assigned to be special counsel to investigate how the Mueller investigation didn't actually come up with anything. And so there's this narrative that's sort of being put out there, this attempt to frame the corrupt media's failings basically as mere confirmation bias. And they're trying to frame this thing that somehow or another they fell for the Russia collusion hoax. Okay, but no, actually, they were part of it. Now, you may not have heard about this recent story, but soon after Special Counsel John Durham indicted Igor Danchenko, the primary subsource of the Steele dossier. Remember the Steele dossier? This was the dossier that supposedly said that Trump went and had a hotel room with some Russian prostitutes, and he enjoyed the golden showers and stuff, and this shows that he was in the back pocket of Russian oligarchs who were loyal to Vladimir Putin. Well, the primary subsource of the now defamed and humiliated former MI6 agent Christopher Steele, who the Steele dossier is named after, Igor Danchenko, was indicted by Special Counsel John Durham, the third person to be indicted, by the way, by the Durham investigations. 5 counts of lying to the FBI. The press went out and paused to feign a moment of public introspection. The corrupt media's attempt to frame their failings as mere confirmation bias, however, holds no truer than the Russia collusion hoax that they peddled for 5 years. The proof of this reality is seen in the prostitute sex tapes, the non-existent golden showers one, and the verifiable but ignored Hunter Biden videos. The first step of what appeared, at least momentarily, to be the kickoff of a mea culpa parade came earlier this month when the Washington Post amended large segments of 2 articles covering the Russia collusion storyline, one from March of 2017 and the second from February of 2019. Both articles had named Sergei Milan, a Belarusian American businessman, as the individual identified as Source D in the Steele dossier, while Milan had long denied speaking with Danchenko or having any role in the dossier. It was only after Durham charged the Russian-born Danchenko and former Brookings Institute employee with lying about receiving a telephone call from Milan that the Post and other media outlets removed the claims. Then, last week, the New York Times ran a guest essay by Professor of Journalism and former Columbia Journalism School Dean Bill Gruskin. Headline, quote, "How did so much of the media get the Steele dossier so wrong?" Close quote. To Gruskin, the problem was multi-pronged, let's say. Gruskin's prologue to why so many were taken in so easily was simple. The dossier seemed to confirm what they already suspected, a corruption of Donald Trump that spanned from dodgy real estate negotiations to a sordid hotel room tryst, all tied together by the president-elect's obeisance to President Vladimir Putin of Russia. From there, Gruskin listed the problems, which amazingly all belonged to Trump. Trump had long curried Mr. Putin's favor, and he and his family were eager to do business in Russia. But then there was Trump's choice of Paul Manafort. And as his campaign chair, that reinforced the idea that he was in the thrall of Russia. Adding to the perfect storm that explained the press failures, Gruskin posited that journalists also had to deal with the fact that many of the denials came from confirmed liars. Further complicating the matter, Gruskin wrote, was that some reporters simply didn't like or trust Mr. Trump and didn't want to appear to be on his side. Here's Gruskin's quote from former Times reporter Barry Meyer's book, Spooked. Quote, "Plenty of reporters were skeptical of the dossier, but they hesitated to dismiss it because they didn't want to look like they were carrying water for Trump or his cronies." Close quote. Bunk. The corporate media did not fall for the Russia hoax. They were a part of it. How else do you explain the scathing email that Jake Tapper sent to BuzzFeed editor Ben Smith after the latter published the dossier? Quote, "I think your move makes the story less serious and credible. I think you damage its impact." Close quote. This is what Jake Tapper wrote. And on that point, at least, maybe nothing else, Tapper was correct. The actual dossier, as opposed to select excerpts or wordsmith summaries pushed by the anti-Trump press, was a laughably fake document. And when the public saw the source, they didn't buy it. And really, neither did the press. For all the corporate media's ex post facto efforts to rationalize why they fell for the dossier, only one holds true. They didn't like Trump personally or politically. Now, Joe Biden? Oh, they like him. No. They love Joe Biden. So in weeks before the November 2020 election, when the New York Post published multiple stories revealing damaging information recovered from an abandoned laptop bearing the Biden Foundation sticker, social media silenced the story. And the corporate media spun it as Russian disinformation. The same folks who supposedly bought anonymous claims that Trump had paid prostitutes to pee on a bed the Obamas had once slept in found the actual videos of Hunter Biden with prostitutes unbelievable. Likewise, we're to believe that Trump's supposed shady business deals made the dossier plausible to the press, while unworthy of the media's trust was genuine emails discussing a 10% cut reserved for the big guy as a part of the Biden family deal being plotted with a Chinese energy giant. And we're supposed to just believe that the press that pushed the Russia collusion hoax did so hesitantly and out of a desire to not carry water for Trump and his cronies, all while they carried water for Biden over the finish line, where he now sits as commander-in-chief across the virtual table from China's Xi Jinping. Sure. So now the corporate media is expending some effort to report on Hunter Biden's partnership in 2016 with a Chinese state-backed company that gave the communist organization ownership of an African cobalt mine. That profitability, that profitable investment by the younger Biden gave China control over much of the world's production of cobalt. That's an essential element for electric car batteries. And with the Biden administration's latest spending proposal, earmarking billions for promoting electric vehicles, we now see reporters beginning to probe whether the president's son remains a financial beneficiary of that deal. But that the corrupt media turned a blind eye to the evidence of a China-Biden scandal in 2020 lays bare the lie that journalists fell for the dossier and the Russia collusion conspiracy theory because of simple confirmation bias. There was no confirmation bias. It was collusion. Pure and simple. There's no other way of looking at that. I want to jump into the chat room at WSHO. And let's see here. Got a lot of chats in the room. Glad you guys are with us today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see here. We're going to start with SG. SG said, his and what we need more to do. A town in California has declared itself a constitutional republic, independent of executive orders issued by the federal or state governments in protest of lockdowns, mask mandates, and compulsory vaccinations. And there's a link there, so if you want to check that out. I don't know anything about Summit News. I'll check that out later. Thank you, SG. Also, thank you, SG, for posting the link so that people can go check that out in the chat room at WSHO.com. 7 said, read Robert Kennedy Jr.'s book, The Real Anthony Fauci. Don't read anything from Robert Kennedy Jr. Robert Kennedy Jr. is just an anti-vaxxer all the way around. So I wouldn't recommend reading progressive hero Robert Kennedy Jr. And he's been debunked even before COVID. So he's just, that's a grift. Come on, 7. Come on, 7, you know this. If you listen to this station, you know Robert Kennedy Jr. is grifting. Do not read his book. Don't buy it. Don't read it. Leave him alone. 7 also said, the jab is not... Okay, great. Thanks, 7. We're not talking about vaccines today. Get with the program. Buy 7. Leave or stick with us. Buffalo fan, how is Trump's Truth Network doing? No clue. I don't even know what that is. Questions. How can we get to the Trump site? What's the URL? Who knows? Buffalo fan. YouTube never shows me the left stuff. I have to manually type in Rachel Maddow, and then it opens a Pandora's box of other lies and bifurcation. Just naked, unabashed lying, trying to get as many votes for Biden in 24 as they can and not caring what they have to say in order to do it. Anyone who disagrees is, wait for it, racist. Ha ha ha. Very fun, very funny Buffalo fan. Let's see, Jim said truthsocial.net. I'm guessing that's the Trump thing. Buffalo fan, I'm hoping that at least everyone on Facebook will also have Truth Social so they can see both sides. That's not too much to ask of brainwash sheep, I hope. Well, listen, I don't know. No, I'm not going to make that comment. Jim doesn't seem to be available. Buffalo fan, is Google blocking Truth Social? That is cause for serious investigation into those holier-than-thou tech oligarchs. Let's see. Sign I. Does this channel allow phone-ins from other areas? 504-527-0800. 504-527-0800. I don't have the volume on the phone, but just keep calling in, and it'll flash, and we'll get you on. Buffalo fan, I would keep calling. Might just be a glitch. Yes, thank you for encouraging them, Buffalo fan, to keep calling in. In fact, we're going to go to the phone lines now. We're going to go to line 1. Thank you for joining us. Trey Roberts here on the Current Word.
Yes, Trey, this is Rusty. Radio up.
Hey, Rusty.
One comment. Hi, Trey. I got one comment and I got one question for you. The first is a short comment. You know, I listen all day long, or much of the time anyway, to conservative talk radio. And they're constantly playing the left-wing speeches. And I wonder, why do they do this? I go out of my way not to look at the national news. I have done that pretty much since Trump became president, and pretty much since the virus started, almost 100%. I do have this station now, because I don't have cable or a satellite, this NTD station that gives me a conservative spot to look at. But I don't know why all these shows always playing what I call the political enemy's speech. And, you know, and again, but I got a question for you. I think I've heard you say this on Bob's show last week, and I heard you say it today, but I didn't catch all of it because I was doing something like you were saying at the beginning of your show. You talked about right-wing bias. What does that mean?
All right, Rusty, I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. So keep listening, and I'll answer that question. Thank you for calling. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Right-wing bias. So right-wing bias is you and I as conservatives. We have sort of a worldview. Okay, we have a worldview that we believe is correct. One of the difficult things for us is that we're not only conservative politically, but we're also Christian. And so in the United States of America, there's an easy, if you will, there's an easy conflation between mixing our citizenship in the kingdom of God with our citizenship in the United States of America. And sometimes we have a hard time delineating between what is the right sort of belief system or actions as a follower of Jesus and what is the right sort of actions as a Republican in the United States of America or a libertarian in the United States of America. We have bias on the right in that you can have someone that holds conservative principles and they will describe a particular matter from the principles of conservatism. At the same time, you have people who will look at the same exact situation and they will describe that particular situation from a left-leaning progressive set of principles and a worldview that comes from a progressive standpoint. So to answer your question is there's more than just two ways of looking at any particular situation. So when we, for the most part, for media, there's no, outside of maybe Fox News, and Fox, understand the difference between Fox News, the channel, and the news apparatus, and Fox Opinion. Once 5 o'clock comes around, all of the things that you see in the evening on Fox, it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then repeats, those are all opinion journalism. Now, they give their opinions about the news. Same thing on MSNBC. If we're going to compare MSNBC, let's say, with Fox News, both of those programs where we see Rachel Maddow versus Tucker, or Joy Reid versus, who's somebody else on Fox? Laura Ingraham. Those people are giving their opinions on newsworthy stories, but they're giving them from completely opposite worldviews. They're giving it from completely opposite political ends of the spectrum, which hold to very different political principles, political ideologies. The news itself is supposed to be this idea of stating of facts about a particular issue without permission. But because the universities where our journalists come out of have been co-opted by the progressive leftist worldview, the professors that indoctrinate and raise up the journalists of the future, the writers of the future, basically the educated class in the future, when they go into their jobs, especially those in journalism, they hold the Marxist, liberal, socialist, communist, progressive ideologies, And what's left for us as conservatives is you may have one or two conservative professors over the course of your entire time at whatever institution you're at. So then there becomes groupthink. So if you only got your news from the Blaze, Glenn Beck's organization, you just have to be aware that you're getting it from a conservative, someone who doesn't want to align himself only with Republicans so that he doesn't alienate moderate Democrats, but also that he's coming from a Mormon worldview. So you just need to be aware of those things. Think of it like this too, Rusty. Think of it from a standpoint of when you watch the 700 Club, CBN. If you get your news from CBN, are you not aware that there is a Christian bias to the way those stories are being reported? So think about it. Most stories and most situations in life are complex. And we've talked about this in the past, and this is what makes it very difficult for us, is we have to look at things. We can't look for the simple, quick answers to make sense of the world. We have to continue growing. We have to continue reading. We have to continue listening to voices that don't already agree with us, because undoubtedly there's going to be aspects, opinions, explanations that hold a grain of truth. I mean, think about, look, Black Lives Matter. We went through, when they really were making big progress, and we saw them really explode into prominence after the George Floyd murder. We saw that there were basically 4 types of people who were getting involved with Black Lives Matter. So we could go by this binary that, no, Black Lives Matter is an LGBTQ plus, anti-black male, feminist organization run by trained Marxists. Or you could just be completely sold out and say, no, this is an organization that tries to lift up black lives. But that's two aspects of it, but there's 2 other aspects that people got involved with or began to support the Black Lives Matter movement. And we tried to show that nuance. Where there requires greater understanding on our part is for us to not get caught into black or white thinking, left or right thinking. That we have to understand that things are in life are just more complex than a simple answer. But that complexity requires more time, greater learning, specialized knowledge. And most of the time, we don't trust the people that have the specialized knowledge that can give us help. That's why yesterday, Rusty, I put on Dr. Marty McCary. He's got specialized information about this, and he seems to be not a political hack for either the right or the left. He seems to be an independent, critical thinker who has been trained to be able to look at the studies for masks, studies for the vaccine, studies for the effectiveness, the reports that come out in public health. He seems to have all these things, and so who better than to give us some real in-depth answers and good information than someone like that? Hopefully that helps, Rusty. Thank you for your phone call. I got 2 more stories, and we only got 20 minutes to do it, so let me finish up here in the let's see here. Finish up in the chat room at WSHO.com. You can also go to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube if you can't get into the chat room on WSHO.com. Let's go back to, yep, keep calling. We did that. Okay, Robert. Biden, Obama, whoever is saying he will stop religious exemptions. Robert also said Tucker Carlson had Robert Kennedy on and did not sound on the left at all. He had a sound view on what's going on now and the issues with the shot. Started reading the book, and it's what is really going on now. Highly recommend. Okay, so Robert, think about this. This is good. I'm glad you posted that. Of course, Tucker Carlson is going to have Robert Kennedy on. Okay, let's make the connections here. We can think through this. Tucker Carlson has been against the vaccine mandate and highly against the people like Dr. Fauci, the CDC, the WHO. Okay? So Tucker is going to give an opinion that is highly suspect of all of those organizations who are pushing the COVID-19 vaccine. Makes sense. If you're Tucker Carlson and you have these questions, it makes sense. So why not bring on Robert Kennedy, who's been an anti-vaxxer going all the way back to the fake vaccines cause autism debate. So that's where bedfellows makes sense. You understand? Tucker Carlson can bring an anti-vaxxer on because Tucker Carlson has put out opinions that although he is probably vaccinated, he wouldn't put that out there because he's the guy who's questioning those in power who are trying to mandate the vaccine. And that's fine. His show is not news. Fox News has said no one takes Tucker Carlson seriously because Tucker Carlson is giving important opinions that are different from pretty much everybody else in the opinion news business. So Tucker Carlson's opinion is important. I'm not a big supporter, Robert, of the government shot. I'm a big supporter of the data in the effectiveness of the vaccine. When I went to Africa on a mission trip, I got malaria vaccine, yellow fever vaccine, hepatitis A vaccine, Tdap, which is what, tetanus, something else, and pertussin, diphtheria. I got these different vaccines. Some were required for me to even walk into the country because I came from a different place. I'm a big supporter, Robert, in supporting you that if you don't want to get the vaccine, you shouldn't be made to. That's what I'm a big supporter of. I'm not a supporter of the shot in the sense that I think it should be mandated. I think personally it's effective in preventing death, and I think from the data we have now 2+ years into this, I think it's safe. And I think the risk for COVID and the side effects, both short and long term of COVID, are greater than the side effects from the vaccine. And I'm very excited by the mRNA vaccine and what future diseases this particular type of vaccine can hold for us as humanity. I'm very eager to that future. Buffalo fan, the chat room is limited to 10 people. That's correct. So give yourself a chance to jump in the chat room, make your comment, jump out. If you want more opportunity for opinion, jump on Facebook. We're live right now on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Twitter. You can go to any of those places and be in the chat room. In fact, we'll even put your comments on the video. Spudman said Vanderbilt announces they are testing and doing a study on ivermectin for humans. That's great. Glad somebody is finally doing it. Remember, ivermectin has been given to humans. It's helped in the river worms that get into your eyes. It's an anti-parasitic, and it's pretty safe, which is why doctors from the beginning that gave it, like the FLCCC, they had no problem giving ivermectin because they've known for 40 years that it's safe for humans to take. They just didn't have any therapeutics. And Dr. McCary yesterday said that none of the data that he's shown, ivermectin nor hydroxychloroquine, which for full disclosure, I'm on. I take it once a week. That's a prophylactic. Has shown to do anything to help fight against COVID-19. Buffalo fan, am giving up my chat spot because I've said my piece, so another can chat. Thank you, Buffalo fan. Appreciate that. You seem to believe all that they say. No, I don't believe. I don't believe most of what they say, Robert. But I just simply know where to get the raw data, and where I can't get the raw data, I know who to go after, who does get the raw data, and they don't work for the government, and they're able to, in an objective manner, give what the data says. Spudman, does anyone watch Newsy TV on 49.5 channel over the air? If you have an antenna, that's what you can do. We're on Facebook. Check out Japan Now. We're on Facebook. If you type in on Facebook, The Rock Worldwide Show with Trey Roberts. If you go there, then you can jump on there, Robert. All right. This next article comes from The Blaze. And here's the title of the Blaze article. The New York Times journalists explore what happens when Democrats have all of the power. Okay, wait a minute. Wrong story. Hold on. Be patient. Let me see if this is the one. Well, it's the same one. Yes, they find out that the blue states are the problem. Okay, so a pair of New York Times journalists. Let me just kind of set the stage on what this was. They recently set out to explore what happens when Democrats control all the levels of power in a state. But not just in a state, also in local government. And what they were shocked to find out that across governments all across the country, it was blue states, not red ones, that are the problem. So here's what they basically asked. Times video journalist Johnny Harris asked at the outset of an opinion video posted by the paper last week, what do Democrats actually do when they have all the power? And so Harris teamed up with Times editorial board writer Benjamin Applebaum to examine why famously liberal states like New York, California, Washington, not DC, but the state, why they struggle to advance the progressive policies despite little to no Republican opposition. Republicans can't do anything in these states. Like sometimes it doesn't even make sense that they even attempt. Republicans even make any attempt. But they focused on three core initiatives of the Democratic Party platform: affordable housing, economic equality, and educational opportunity. And in the end, they discovered that liberal hypocrisy, not Republican opposition, is what's fueling American inequality. And that things are actually much worse in blue states than they are in red. Now look, you and I, again, these are not surprising revelations. They are to the left. They are to this corporate media, because this corporate media traverses, they traffic in misconceptions, misinformations, abject racism, judgmentalism, and prejudice. And we know this. But it's just funny when very few times, but time after time, reports like this, accidental journalism takes place, and they discover that it's actually blue states which are the problem. Quote, in key respects, many blue states are actually doing worse than red states. It is in the blue states where affordable housing is often hardest to find. There are some of the most acute disparities in educational funding, and economic inequality is increasing most quickly. We know that the liberal progressive bias is do as I say, not as I do. We know that they don't like spending their tax money, but they love spending your tax dollars. Like, these are things that we know. They can afford, expensive $20,000, $30,000 a year education for their children, and they can give them iPads and tutors and stuff like that when there's lockdown. But then the poor people that they claim to be fighting for end up getting the raw end of the bargain. You heard it yesterday in Dr. Marty's interview yesterday. Blue states are the problem. More quotes from his article. Blue states are where the housing crisis is located. Blue states are where the disparities in education funding are the most dramatic. Blue states are the places where tens of thousands of homeless people are living on the streets. Blue states are the places where economic inequality is increasing most quickly in this country. This is not a problem of not doing well enough. It is a situation where blue states are the problem. And let me just remind you, this is New York Times video reporter, last name Harris. What's his first name? What's this guy's name? Johnny Harris. Johnny Harris. Okay? At one point, Harris noted that affluent liberals tend to be really good at showing up at marches and talking about how they love equality and putting signs in their lawn saying all are welcome here. But their actions, what they're actually saying is, yes, we believe in these ideals, just not in my backyard. The New York Times may just be waking up to this notion, but the American people have been keen to it for some time. and have been showing their dissatisfaction by leaving blue states and moving to red ones. Think about that. You hear about people, and like these are some of the bigger ones, like people like Joe Rogan leaving California. But Joe Rogan has influenced a lot of left-leaning people to move to places like Texas. And even though they're moving to Austin, that's still the fact that they moved to Texas and they're leaving blue states and moving to red ones. All we can hope is that when they get to these red states, that they don't try to turn them blue, because the blue stuff ruins like a good state. And some of that may actually be what they're trying to do. Let's go back to the phone lines and welcome Tony. Tony, welcome to the Current Word Friday edition with guest host Trey Roberts.
Hey, Mr. Trey. When you're talking about earlier, I heard the right-wing bias. I don't know where all of those terms came from, but they have been around now a long time. And some tend to conjecture and suggest that right-wing bias are people who associate advances in themselves or America and the public with right-wing or white people ideas. They always tend to come across that white people progress more and move ahead. They have more inventions, they have better ideas, they have better ways. They don't like things especially that tend to demoralize the country, to reduce ethics, to move away from virtues. Right-wing people like to have people who are civilized, people who align themselves with godly agendas. Whether they believe in God or not, they tend to follow law better. That's where I have seen it tend to be. Today, I received an email today, and the Washington Post article finds that most of the hate speech detected on Facebook is all anti-white and anti-male. That was done today. This was part of a survey done with Zuckerberg. So right-wing as opposed to left-wing, when I talk to leftist people thinking, they always tend to have their mind in the gutter. They're following things in life that would be considered immoral by God, lacking virtues and stuff and all. But here's the thing. If you measure them both on each side, you find that their hedonism, they run after, they chase the world. That's a thought.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it, my brother, and have a wonderful rest of your Thanksgiving weekend. Let's stay on the phone lines and go to the Phil the Patriot. Phil the Patriot, welcome to the Current Word here on WSHO.
Cajun widower. This is the Cajun widow. I've been through a whole lot this year. Well, second cousin got murdered at the Jefferson Gun Outlet with 2 shots. And first shot didn't kill her, second shot did kill her.
Hey, Phil, hold on, Phil, hold on real quick. Are you able to, has the CDC come down and did an investigation on everything?
The CDC, I mean the communist death camp people?
Yeah, have the communist death camp people, have they come in and verified, because this would be important for society. Like, this would be gaining a lot more information. I don't want conjecture that you think she got a shot and then passed away. I want to know, have you and other people that, like her family and whatnot, have you guys pushed to make sure that there was an investigation, a medical examination done to rule out any other causes?
They classified it as a not of natural death, of course. It's a cover-up.
Well, yeah, but you say, hold on, Phil. You say, of course, but of course, she got the shot. To you, had to be that because it was because of the vaccine, right? Like, of course.
They forced her to take the shot to keep her job, and now she's dead.
Yeah, well, okay. She also, but hold on. They forced her to take the shot to keep her job. She didn't have to take it. She could have done other things to not take it. She could have got a different job. Listen, I'm not supporting that they forced her to do it, okay? Corporate America, we know, is carrying the water. I just want to be able to have the evidence, and it should be very clear and very obvious, not in a conjecture sort of way, but in an evidentiary sort of way.
Because a heart attack is real.
Yeah, and people have heart attacks all the time, Phil, and even when they don't have vaccines.
Well, they were both young people, basically. One was a little younger than me, and one was a little older than me.
Which is still over 55 years old.
Well, I am a little older than that. I'm almost 68. And my BFF, he was 63, and my uncle was 81. All right? And they're dead now. And they have something in common. Their legs swole up, and then they both died of a massive heart attack. Both of them. This is personal. And I take it personal that you're going to go on the air and declare this poisonous, illegal assassination safe and effective. Yeah, it's effective and has side effects. It's called death. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Phil. And all I'm saying is provide the evidence. Like, just like if the medical examiners said that this person died of natural causes, they don't actually work for the CDC. But if the family even suspects that that your loved one, your BFF, like we talked about this yesterday, the places where there have been breakthrough cases, the places where there have been breakthrough hospitalizations, and the places where there have been fully vaccinated and then get COVID deaths, there just aren't enough deaths that are being verified by the result of the vaccine. That we're just talking about evidence. We're not talking about anything else. Don't take it so personal. I'm sorry for your loss. One last article about the media real quick before we get out of here, and this comes to us from the Washington Examiner. The Democrats and the media, of course, as we've talked about today, the media over and over and over, we know they're in cahoots. The media might as well be the propaganda arm of the Democrat Party. But they are cooling with inflation talk, and they are urging Americans to sort of have, quote unquote, perspective. That complaining about higher prices, that used to be a universal right, but now it's partisanship. That it's okay now to pay 60% more for heating fuel, or 29% more for eggs, or 57% higher for gas prices, when all of those things were going further and further down under the Trump administration. And the latest evidence is a new Trafalgar Group survey that shows that while a majority of respondents feel forced to change their holiday plans due to rising prices, Democrats seem giddy over opening their wallets even wider. In fact, the survey found that more people are cutting back, 52% compared to 48%, because of rising prices of gas and groceries. And the media is just spinning this for the Democrat Party. They're trying to help Biden. They know 2022 is setting itself up to be a bloodbath for the Democrat Party, and so that's exactly why they're doing it. All of these stories are posted. All of these stories are posted on the social media site. If you want to jump on there and see these original articles that we talked about today, you can do so. And in the meantime, we're going to get out of here. Thank you for joining the Rock Worldwide Show. Actually, the current word here on WSHO. Tune in tomorrow for the Rock Worldwide Show at 11 o'clock. Oppose progressivism wherever it rears its ugly head. Illuminate the light of truth. We'll see you tomorrow.